Hi guys, I'm back with another video review. Just like the title says, this is going to be my review of the Focal Clear. Now, to clear things up, there's actually two versions of the Clear. There's the regular gray one, which is a MSRP of $1,500, and then there's the Clear Pro, which is a slightly different version of the Clear, and it retails for an MSRP of $1,700. Now, the main differences between the two are purely cosmetic, and in terms of the accessories, they're different. But otherwise, I'm pretty sure they're about the same headphone. So the Clear Pro has a set of extra pads that come with the package, and those pads by themselves are $200. So that's what mainly justifies the price difference between the two. With that being said, let's go on with the review. I didn't actually do an unboxing video of this headphones, so I'll just briefly go over the box contents here. So on here you can see the different specifications of the headphone. I used a digital multimeter on my particular unit, and my impedance was 59 ohms instead of the suggested 55, so slightly different from the regular specifications, but that's to be expected for all headphones. Let's see, what else is in the box? You get this very nice, I guess, portfolio case of different cables that come with the headphone. So over here you have a 6.3 millimeter terminated 10-foot cable, and over here you have a 10-foot long XLR terminated cable. So you can use these with both unbalanced and balanced headphone amplifiers. Pretty handy. And you also get user manual and warranty information card in here. So this is a nice, well presented portfolio of the accessories. Also, in this version of the Clear, you get this very nice hard shell carrying case. This carrying case has a kind of premium feeling to it. This is like a denim type material, and there's a leather hand strap at the top. Once you open up the zippers, you're immediately presented with the headphones themselves. Over here, you have a 3.5 to 6.3 millimeter adapter. You have the headphones themselves. So again, this is the regular Clear. The Clear Pro has red earpads and a black kind of overall profile to it. And then inside of the case, you can put two cables in here. This one is another cable that comes with the Clear regular version. This is a 3.5 millimeter terminated single-ended cable. This one is 3 feet long, as you can kind of tell. This cable is actually very nice. If you can tell, this is a flat-ish profile cable, so the cable doesn't get tangled very easily. This is a cotton wrapped 24 American gauge wire oxygen-free cable, so it's a pretty nice cable overall. Very different from what the Utopia comes with, which is super long, very unwieldy cable. So this was a nice change for Focal to include in the Clear. On the actual terminated ends that attach to the headphone, I don't know if you can tell, but there's kind of a recessed area here that includes a locking mechanism. So once you attach it to the headphone, it kind of has a lock like that. So moving on to the actual headphones themselves, they are probably amongst the most comfortable headphones I've actually put on my head. This Alcantara suede, very plush material is very breathable, and that was one of the goals for Focal to include in this headphone, was to make this ear cushion acoustically transparent. And so when you put this on your head, supposedly it's supposed to make the sound come like it's from an open room. So if you put this on and you're in a room with music, the music basically goes right through the headphones. So it's supposed to be very acoustically transparent and doesn't affect the sound. They are removable. As I mentioned, for the Focal Pro, Clear Pro, it comes with an additional set of earpads. And as you might be able to tell, these are angled drivers, and like most headphones with angled drivers, it kind of makes the presentation of the sound a little bit different. If you actually shine a flashlight through the driver assembly, you can see right through it. So it's got this very transparent overall design that allows air to become in and out of the headphone driver assembly. So it's a very, again, open and acoustically transparent design that Focal made. These headphones are all made in France because Focal is a French company. As you can see on the front, Fabrique in France. The material of the actual headphone is pretty premium feeling. The outside mesh is all metal. This placard is all metal. This yoke assembly is a brushed aluminum. It is fingerprint friendly, so you can't see any fingerprints. The headband itself is pretty flexible. And inside of the driver, inside of the driver assembly, the driver itself is made of an aluminum magnesium driver dome. So that helps with the rigidity of the driver. And also they shaped it so that it's like an M, kind of like that, except it's actually reversed, so it's like that. So as the driver assembly moves, it moves pretty linearly for a dynamic headphone. This is not a planar magnetic headphone, and this is not a electrostatic headphone like the SR207. So it's a pretty unique design for the driver assembly. The actual voice coil, the copper voice coil, is formless, so there's no cylinder in between the coil, so it's basically just a hollow coil like that. And when it's moving, the diaphragm is rigid enough so that it doesn't have a breakup frequency within the audible spectrum. So I believe the breakup frequency for the Clear is 24 kilohertz, so it's above the range of human hearing. So it's a very linear sounding headphone for reproducing frequencies within the audible range. So with that in mind, describing how the driver works and how the technology of the Focal Clear works, I'll go ahead and basically talk about the sound now. So this headphone was announced in 2017 at CanJam Rocky Mountain Audio Fest, and I was actually at the event then, and I got a chance to listen to these on the show floor, and immediately I was presented with a sense of familiarity. Upon closer listening in a more controlled environment that's not super loud and noisy like at a CanJam event, I actually got a very similar sense to how it sounded with the Stax 207, which is my main reference headphone. And this is great because I had not heard a headphone that sounded similar to 207 before, and I was immediately drawn to it, which is part of the reason why I purchased these headphones. Talking about the overall sound, as you can see on the screen, overlaid with the Stax 207 measurement from innerfidelity.com, which some of you know, but most probably don't know, that particular unit that was measured was mine. I had sent that in to Tile at the time, and he had measured those headphones twice, once with the stock synthetic leather Earpads, and again with the EP507 leather Earpads. So going back to the Focal Clear, the measurements of the frequency response are very similar overall, but there are some key differences in the sound that I really enjoy from the Focal Clear that the Stax may not necessarily reproduce. So for me, the reference is still the Stax, but for overall music enjoyment, I really like the Clears. They're terrific. So going into the bass frequency is kind of where I think the Clear lacks the most. It's pretty well extended and has good texture, but it seems a little bit lacking in terms of oomph. If you're listening to a planar magnetic headphone, you'll immediately hear the difference between these dynamic headphones and the planar magnetic headphone. Even compared to an electrostatic headphone, the Clears kind of lack that oomph that I like to hear in electronic music, for example. So that's basically the one big weakness for me for the Clear, is that the bass could use a little more punch to it. Going to the mid-range compared to the Stax 207 is also a little bit different. Because the Focal Clear has a mid-bass hump, it bleeds into the mid-range a little bit, but that's not a bad thing in my opinion, because it actually adds some warmth to the mid-range. And for most music that I listen to, adding a little bit of warmth in the mid-range is not a bad thing. So I actually do like that mid-range presence in terms of the warmth there. The upper mid-range is pretty good overall. Nothing is too out in your face in terms of the frequency response there. If you compare it to the Stax 207, the Stax 207 is infamous for having a resonant frequency at around 2 kilohertz, which makes it sound a little bit shouty. The Focal Clear does not have the issue at all, so it's fantastic for the mid-range as a whole. And moving on to the treble, I know a lot of people who have listened to dynamic headphones say that the treble is kind of where dynamic headphones fall apart. And in the case of the Clear, it's actually not too bad. Texture is good. It's not very bright sounding. The treble response overall is pretty smooth. There is a around 11 to 12 kilohertz peak that does make the treble sound a little bit harsh, but not too harsh so that it ruins the music. So it's not a big problem for me. Magnetic headphones have an issue with around the 10 kilohertz range that makes the treble sound tizzy. In my opinion, a lot of headphones overdo that treble peak, so the Focal Clear doesn't have that issue, and doesn't have a lot of the sparkle that I know a lot of people do like from that treble peak. So the smoothness of the treble kind of helps with the imaging. The imaging of the Focal Clear is very solid overall. When you're listening to music and you have an instrument here and an instrument here, they're actually pretty well separated. So in terms of the imaging, the Focal Clear does a great job of that. The soundstage is very different from how the Stax present the soundstage. So the soundstage on the Clear is more overall round. It's got some depth and some width, but it's not huge like the HD800 or very deep like the HE1000 from Hi-Fi Man. So there's a lot of differences in how the soundstage is presented. But in terms of the Focal Clear, maybe it's due to the angled drivers. I feel like it's more like listening to speakers pointed directly at you at a 45-degree angle, which is nice to hear for music. It's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, but I do like that kind of sound. The Stax are more of a flat left and right imaging in terms of the presentation of the soundstage and the images in that soundstage, whereas the Focal Clear is more three-dimensional. So I do like that in terms of the overall sound, and when listening to music, that definitely adds a more immersive effect to listening. So for me, the Clear is definitely a winner in terms of the sound quality. One of my favorite dynamic headphones that I've ever listened to, and I really can't wait to see what Focal does in the future for headphones to improve this sound in this price category. And so in terms of the gear that I've used the Focal Clear with, I've mostly been using it with the RME ADI2 DAC, probably one of my favorite DACs I've ever listened to. Well, DAC slash amplifier. But I've also listened to it through the Aston Kern AK100 Mark II, as well as the Shanling M3S. For my personal preferences, I actually like to pair the Clear with a warmer device, so the Aston Kern AK100 Mark II is my go-to for a portable unit to use with the Clear. The Shanling is a little bit too bright for me, so that kind of ruins the Clear's overall profile. But that's just my personal preference. Overall, I think the Clear is definitely a winner for the sound quality. I've listened to it on a bunch of other different headphone amplifiers, desktop size, portable, etc. And the overall sound characteristic of the Clear remains clear. So no matter which genre of music I throw at it, no matter which source I put it with, most of the time the Clear does really good with them. Because it's rated at 59 ohms for my unit, it's actually pretty easy to drive. So I don't need a super duper powerful amplifier to go with this. So it's very nice in terms of being able to pair with other devices. And that's what leads me to my conclusion, is that the reason why I purchased these was because, one, it sounded similar to the Stax 207, which is my reference headphone. Two, it sounds freaking fantastic with most of the music that I listen to. Three, it can be paired with a lot of different devices without having too much of an issue. Portable units, desktop units, full-size units. And four, I think this is really worth the price in terms of what I paid for. So going into all of what it comes with, all 3 cables, the carrying case, the overall build that you get with this unit, and the sound, of course, I think it really justifies the price that Focal is asking for. And if you get a chance to listen to this, I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite headphones that I've listened to, and I usually wouldn't recommend spending over $1,000 on a pair of headphones, but in this case, I think this is a fantastic deal for what you get. So 2 thumbs up for the Focal Clear. If you guys are going to be at the Can Jam SoCal area in Irvine next month, then I hope to see you there. If not, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in another review video.